Welcome to Newshour. The Pentagon has confirmed that US military strikes in Yemen earlier today targeted the Iranian-backed Ansar Allah movement, marking a notable shift in strategy from the previous US administration. Military advisors from the Iranian Islamic Revolutionary Guard, including special forces, were among those killed in the strikes. Nick Harper has more now from Washington, D.C.
Well, Guy, the US President Donald Trump says the Houthis are sinister mobsters and thugs. In a post on his social media platform, he said their attacks emanate from and are created by Iran. As such, the US President warned that any further attacks or retaliatory action by the group would be considered a direct attack by Iran itself and would face, he said, dire consequences. Every shot fired, President Trump wrote, by the Houthis will be viewed from this point forward as being a shot fired from the weapons and leadership of Iran. And he warned Tehran will be held responsible. The Trump administration is trying to hold the Yemen-based group accountable for targeting, in recent months, Western-linked ships in and around the Red Sea. It even fired upon a US aircraft carrier, the USS Harry S. Truman, in the Red Sea on Sunday, that in response to the US strikes on Yemen earlier in the weekend. The Houthis have also launched airstrikes against Israel over the last 18 months in retaliation to its military action in the Gaza Strip. The Pentagon confirmed on Monday that Washington has struck 30 targets in multiple locations in Yemen, carrying out actions against Houthi training sites, unmanned aerial vehicle sites, weapons manufacturing and storage facilities. The strikes also included command and control centres and facilities that the US says has been used to threaten shipping. The White House has released images showing Donald Trump overseeing the airstrikes. And this may not be the end. The Pentagon says US strikes will continue in the coming days until Washington achieves its objectives, with President Trump warning the Houthis to expect overwhelming lethal force. Nick Harper for A News in Washington, D.C.
Now, the UK is among other nations to have supported strikes in Yemen. Ollie Barrett is outside number 10 Downing Street in London for us with the UK perspective.
Well, Guy, very little being said on the record by the UK government about the fresh strikes on Houthi targets at the moment. But what a government source has told A News is that the UK did not participate in the strikes against Houthi targets. But the source goes on to tell A News that the UK provided routine allied air-to-air refuelling support to aid the self-defense of a US aircraft carrier in the region from which the strikes were launched. Now, we know that between January and May of last year, the US and the UK carried out what UK government describes as 5 joint naval and air strikes against the Houthis in response to attacks on shipping. But this time round, so far, the support from the UK seems to have been in the form of that routine refueling. Now, of course, the Houthis have been saying that they have been targeting UK, US and Israel flagged vessels in the region. Certainly, sources here in London believe that that is not entirely accurate and that flagged carriers and vessels from other countries have certainly been the target of attacks as well. Back in January 2024, when these strikes between the UK and US were first launched, the then Prime Minister Rishi Sunak described it in this way. He said that it was proportionate action in self-defence. He said it was limited and not escalatory. Rishi Sunak at the time going on to say, and he repeated this a few times, as did government ministers at the time, that he said, "We will not hesitate to protect our security, our people and our interests where required." He said that the action taken starting in January of last year was consistent with the United Nations Charter and was to uphold freedom of navigation. The added context for support provided by the UK at this time, of course, is that the UK can point to military cooperation like this between London and Washington as an example of ways in which the UK does and can support US military operations, that at a time when it's trying to make the case to Washington to continue supporting Ukraine. Ollie Barrett in London for A News.
Ollie Barrett for us there in London. Now, while Tehran is still considering their response to President Trump's letter trying to kickstart negotiations on Iran's nuclear program, the Iranian foreign minister has been holding bilateral discussions in Muscat with the foreign minister of Yemen's neighboring country, Oman. Well, let's go to Tehran now and speak with the political analyst and commentator Touraj Shirililo. Touraj, thanks for joining us. Now, I know there are some important cultural celebrations taking place this evening in Tehran, so viewers may encounter some background noise, but we will endeavour to ensure you can be heard. Let's start with this meeting in Muscat then. What has happened? What's been discussed?
Thank you for having me, Guy. There are basically two major issues on the agenda. Number one, which has been in the pipeline for the couple of weeks, has been the Iran's nuclear program. And the one which has been recently going on is the U.S. attack on Yemen. So far, it seems that Mr. Foreign Minister of Iran, Mr. Araqchi's visit to Yemen, to Oman yesterday, briefly, just for a few hours, was mostly related to the ongoing situation in Yemen, and perhaps both sides tried to discuss the situation in the region and how to control it and not to let it to go or to spiral out of control. The official statement said that they discussed bilateral relations, they discussed regional developments, and directly included and referred to Yemen. So I think that here, this time around, this discussion between Iran and Omani foreign ministers was mostly concentrating on developments in Yemen. And there is a good reason for that, because Oman has been, in fact, functioning as an effective mediator between Iran and the U.S., also in the past, not just in recent past. And for example, in the exchange or in the release of prisoners from two sides, and also in handling messages from officials of two countries. So it's very natural that this time around, Mr. Araqchi decided to visit Oman and meet his Omani counterpart to discuss the issue of Yemen.
Touraj, just taking a step back, it does look like there are some mixed messages emerging. You know, on the one hand, very strong criticism of both America and Israel, but after this Muscat meeting, a commitment by Iran to resolve things with diplomacy to restore peace and stability. What is Iran's strategy here?
In that sense, I don't see any mixed strategy or mixed messages coming from Tehran. I think that Iran has adopted a three-pronged, if not a four-pronged strategy or approach, that it has been working in different aspects or in different areas to settle its regional issues. As number one, which is its relations with regional countries, mostly with Qatar, with Oman, also with United Arab Emirates, which recently handed over the letter of Mr. Trump to Iranian officials. And on the other arena, on the other prong, Iran is also in contact with its allies, mostly China and Russia. Last year, Iran entered into strategic partnership pacts with China, a 25-year-old pact, also entered another security strategic pact with Russia, which will be going on for 20 years. And another prong is that Iran is also in conversation with International Atomic Energy and also with United Nations. Yesterday, Iranian Deputy Foreign Minister traveled to Vienna and met IAEA Chief Director General, and later on, in a statement said that we had very frank and also friendly relations. We want IAEA to act professionally, to be impartial. And at the same time, Iranian Deputy Foreign Minister met Russian and Chinese envoys based in Vienna and discussed with them the ongoing nuclear case. So, and okay, I said it could be four-pronged. Another aspect could be Iran's negotiations with the United Nations and also with some Western countries. Iran's foreign minister and Iranian foreign minister and Japanese foreign minister also talked on phone yesterday. And at the same time, Russian deputy foreign minister is in Tehran and met his Iranian counterpart. So I see that Iran is pulling a number of strings at the same time and in a way to handle this or to manage the ongoing situation. In that sense, I don't see any kind of mixed messages or signals coming from Tehran, but I see it as a way of different aspects of one strategy in coming down under various tactics.
Okay, let's look at another strategy, the support of other organizations, other groups. How would you characterize the current state of Iran's support for the Houthi movement? Has it deepened? Has it changed at all in recent years?
The whole story started out of regional rivalry or competition of Iran and Saudi Arabia in what happened there like 10 years back. But after tensions between Iran and Saudi Arabia subsided, it seemed that the crisis in Yemen and will also be settled in one way or another. But what happened 2 years ago was that with the Hamas-Israeli war back in 2024 and Houthis in one way involvement in attacking Israel, it found another aspect. So it was almost on the verge of getting to somewhere near to being settled between out of understanding or negotiations or an agreement between Iran and Saudi Arabia as two main forces. And at the same time, Saudi Arabia was facing another aspect of rivalry with United Arab Emirates forces there. So it was in a way changing. But Hamas-Israeli conflict or war changed it. And now it is spiraling into a different kind of crisis. Iran officially says that I'm not dictating anything to Houthis or to the Houthi movement leaders. And at the same time, I noticed that today there were some unconfirmed sources, reports that Iran has told Houthis to cool down. But there's no official statement on that yet. And it's not Iran's policy to cease support to these groups which Iran calls a resistance movement or resistant axis, because they are fighting against occupation, against hegemony, against oppressors in the world. So basically, there is no such public statement that Iran has either seized or its support, or that it has slowed down its support or back down its support. And this, I think, situation now that Iran has just told them to cool down so that the warnings or threats of Mr. Trump will not come into action, that said, I will attack Iran. And Iran at the same time said that I will retaliate any military adventurism from the American side, from the US side. Yesterday, Iranian Air Force said that Iran has scrambled F-14 jet fighters to intercept one spy drone, US spy drone. And at the same time, the IRGC, Islamic Republic's Revolutionary Guard Corps, said that the Airspace Command said that we will retaliate any intruding, I should say, enemy objects coming to our airspace. So it seems that both sides, in a way, have decided to control this this crisis and not to let it deepen. But at the same time, I see the big picture, and the big picture is not Yemen. The big picture here is the upcoming negotiations between Iran and the United Nations Security Council in October, where when they will decide about the fate of the resolutions, UNSC resolutions, whether to keep the sanctions there, whether to remove the sanctions on Iran's nuclear program. And this is the bigger picture. And Iran, of course, is cards. And one of these cards are the resistant movements in the region, which are opposing the Western interests in the Middle East.
Very interesting indeed. Toraj Shirililo, many thanks indeed for joining us from Iran's capital,
Thank you.
Tehran.
Thank you.
Well, that is all we have time for on this edition of Newshour. Please do stay with us for more news and analysis. And from all of us here in Baku, thank you for watching.